We've had a bad string of luck on this dust ball of a world, but we're going to rectify it. Because clearly it was the ammo's problem. My tactics were fine. In this punitive strike against Quickcell, we are taking a pretty typical clan list, while my opponent is fielding the Imperio Scorpio, which is a really fluffy list. You might have seen it before in a previous Batrep where I did the completely unsportsmanlike thing and completely devastate him from a few kilometers away. In this scenario, we're changing it up a bit. These 3 objectives need to be held, and much like the previous Batreps where we just have to control the area within 3 hexes unopposed, and we get a point. Now my list has a lot of infantry. We are going to move forward and use the stratagem of just letting them deal with dug-in infantry in a city, because that should work out for me. We're going to just drop them off into the buildings up there, and hopefully nothing will go horribly wrong while he spends countless turns trying to dig them out. As you can see in the opening moves, we have already got a feint to the left and the right. He is deploying heavy left with the Marauder, Black Knight, and Thor anchoring the left side, while on the right side we got a lot of lighter assets. Meanwhile, on the Jade Falcon front, we have split our units up. Again, we're blitzing forward with the lighter units, the Fire Falcon and the Vixen, carrying infantry up into the section over here on the left side of the board, while on the right side of the board we have the Black Lanner carrying some more infantry up the right side. And from over here, you can see the center elements, a Thor and a Gargoyle carrying some infantry up into the center building. No shots are traded at this point. Again, most of us are sprinting at this point, but a point does go to the Imperio Scorpio because they managed to get to the right-hand building before I did. It's kind of ironic because in this game I was kind of gloating about the clan advantage for getting out there before him, but he got there with inner sphere units before me. Go figure. This turn, the Fire Falcon dismounts his infantry out in the open because of some really bad timing on my part. The infantry are just going to have to huff it over to this building over here, while the Vixen, fast as all hell, decides to move out and drop off his infantry right in front of the building, thus already giving the Imperio Scorpio something to consider as the infantry are getting ready to embark themselves into the warehouse. As we enter the 4th turn, we are now in the meat of the moves, as all of the units are within range to start engaging each other. Our hands are now played, as we are now trying to figure out how to engage each other at close range. Infantry moves into the Quickcell warehouse. Marauder responds in kind, moving over there with the Thor. Thor is sitting back in the initiative track, waiting to respond to any kind of movement from the Fire Falcon and the Vixen. Meanwhile, the Thor makes his impressive city might felt as he thunders across the field into an empty parking lot, slamming against the communications building. Black Knight makes a very cautious move. Again, he's threatening the road right here, making sure that any move that I make on it is very quick, if not brief. Black Adder on the right dismounts his infantry, again threatening the office building for Quickcell, because we also hate those guys too. We want to make sure that we attract as much fire into that building as humanly possible, while the Gurkha and Light Ray are threatening him, making quite an uneven display of power if he chooses to engage. Gargoyle moves forward, decides to go ahead and put himself in a position so that he can either divert left or right to engage either threat as they present themselves. Having seen that move, the Light Ray decides to back off, moving instead over to the other flank towards the center so that he can perhaps engage something else. Black Adder sees the opportunity, lunges forward, and drags the Gurkha with him, leaving the infantry in control of the office building by themselves. Even the Vixen gets in on this little faux pas in the initiative track, moving around the buildings, very carefully making a run through some paved streets and not slipping. Meanwhile, Fire Falcon decides to try to keep up with him. He has been ham-handing his movement profile the entire game so far, and wouldn't you know it, I accidentally misstep how far he can move. I kept looking at his record sheet, 812, no. I tried to count it out like it was a 914 or something, but I moved the miniature and I went ahead and placed it because I don't want to tie up the game. And in return, the Black Knight takes advantage of that faux pas and starts unloading on him, complete with the Marauder, and I do believe the Thor starts throwing some rounds into him. He does not survive this tactical faux pas. Meanwhile, The Dervish begins throwing his own little surprise party as he starts launching infernos into the building where the infantry are. Well, it appears the Imperial Scorpio love Quickcell just about as much as I do, and the whole building is engulfed in flames as the infantry duck and cover looking for some sort of refuge from the fusillade. Fire Falcon does go down from a fusillade of fire from 3 different heavy and assault mechs. I can't say it wasn't foreseen. Assortment of fire dances over the light ray, but we do not manage to put it down. Instead, we just really inconvenience him for a turn. This Draconis Combine mech is supposed to be a low-cost replacement for the Atlas. Can you guess what it is? Bonus! Can you guess how much it actually cost, and if it was any cheaper? That's right, it's the Akuma! Yeah, I'm not a fan of this design, but some of the artwork is pretty cool. Light Ray falls down for the insult, gets back up, and decides to run away. This has been a rough previous turn for Jade Falcon as we lost the Fire Falcon, and we took quite a bit of damage that we otherwise wouldn't have. Setting the building on fire was a clutch move by Imperial Scorpio. I can't really recommend any better thing to do in that particular situation, as the Dervish made himself way more of a threat than what would initially appear on paper. But at this point, the game is not a total write-off for Clan. We are going to push forward that Jade Falcon will be victorious as we shove more infantry into the burning building. We're just going to move into the sections of the building over here that aren't on fire and really annoy the Dervish for not having finished his job. Meanwhile, in the center of the building, the Gargoyle are dancing left and right, trying to make his presence immediately felt by anybody that manages to get out there. I mean, he's got a bunch of LBX-5s and 2 SRM-6s. He could be a nasty customer to whoever decides to get close to him. If they decide to. Thor moves into the building, takes a defilade position behind the communications tower. Again, we're trying to keep the lanes of fire in such a way that we can't let him use an overwhelming amount of fire against the Thor. Meanwhile, just off camera on the right, the Gurkha has doubled back against the Blackadder, and they are in a dance to the death, moving around each other. The infantry are also trying to support them, having firmly lodged themselves into the office building. They are going to take quite a bit of effort to dislodge. Black Knight feels his chutzpah, or whatever they're calling the drugs that the Clan Goliath is using right now, and decides to go into the city. He's facing off against the Gargoyle and the Thor at close range with 2 Hetzers backing him up right around the corner, armed to the teeth with precision ammo. I would question why you would do that. The Hetzer's a cheap vehicle meant for cheap soldiers, and you're putting some ammo in there that's probably more expensive than the soldier. But I digress. Precision ammo's pretty friggin' baller. It's like this gyrojet wire-guided ammo. It really buffs the mess out of those autocannons. Meanwhile, Light Ray gets up and tries to run away. He is now in forced withdrawal, having received, I do believe, 2 engine hits. And he's going to just bug out and go home, find something better to do. And after being fully trolled by, not being dead, the infantry move into the building, trying to entrench themselves into the non-burning parts so that somebody has to come over there and take care of them. Thor responds in kind, sweeping around on the outside. Dervish rushes back at the building, comes into the smoke, lights up some of the battle armor, and slips on the pavement, crashing into the warehouse, hits the side of the building, goes inside, finds a basement, falls 2 floors, hits the ground in a burning building. Infantry are crawling all around him, having seen the opportunity to dismantle a mech warrior while he's still in a working mech, in a position in which he can't actually move. We've got some Metal Gear Solid style shenanigans going on with a giant mech trying to stomp his way around a really tiny living space while the infantry are trying to remove all the parts that they can get their hands on. That slip, slide, fall through 2 floors of basement into a burning building covered by infantry. Yeah, that's what Battletech's all about. Newly revitalized by the calamity that was sliding into the building, the Dervish gets back up and looks around its surroundings, trying to find the way out. He takes a very careful stance to stand back up. Infantry are hauling around the building. That thing is practically infested with battle armor as the battle armor reach out and decide to take on the Marauder that decided to get too close. Thor, again, trying to play escort and do some little bug stomping on the battle armor, backs up, tries to cover the Marauder, while other infantry again begin swarming the Dervish that failed to leave the building this turn. Meanwhile, in the center of the city, things are getting dicey as the Hetzers begin moving in close, trying to take on anything that they can see. Again, this is a close-range conflict, as you can see here. We don't have a whole lot of room to maneuver, but it is a knife fight, with the Vixen making short work of any flaw in the initiative track, sweeping around from one side to the other, trying to get some of those juicy side shots on that Hetzer. He gets up close, he's going to kick the living mess out of him and pump him full of hot laser rounds. Gargoyle even makes a clutch move, if I might say so for myself, and in this short-range brawl decides to get into the same hex as one of the Hetzers so he can avoid getting shot by him, and then turn around and shoot his buddy with his LBXs, and surprise! He's got Inferno rounds. One of the rarities on any kind of clan mech is normal SRMs, which, you know, I took advantage of. It's got nothing but Infernos, and we're going to turn that tank into more fire than tank by the end of the round. And as the Gargoyle unloads onto that Hetzer, so does the Vixen and the Black Lantern, hitting it with so many Inferno rounds, it's more fire than tank, like I mentioned before, and you would think that that alone would make the crew maybe reconsider its priorities, having a walking apartment building, firing, mech-scale shotgun shells at it. No, Hetzer crew is pretty much unimpressed with this. The multiple Inferno hits do manage to cause one of the weapons to go out, which is its main gun, and that'll cause a forced withdrawal by itself, but it's kind of disappointing. I mean, the tank it's just a rolling fireball at this point. Speaking of which, the warehouse catches on fire even more as some of the fire drifts, and some of the fire is caused by the Dervish, which is just frantically firing Inferno rounds into every hex it can see in just an off attempt to get the infantry to move, which it will. I'm not going to sit around in the fire. I don't have the Jade Falcon fire elementals. They cost too much. So we're just going to bug out of that and deal with something else. Infantry attach satchel charges to the Marauder outside, fails to do any kind of significant damage other than maybe request a change of seat for the Marauder pilot, because we keep getting close to getting a critical on it. Black Knight continues to throw off the aggression of the Thor right next to him. Ultra autocannon pans around, sees the Black Knight, opens up, bada. Miss. Well, that's disappointing. I mean, he was hitting on, I think, 5s. So, every time. But my rant on the Ultra Autocannon 20 that's best for another time. Marauder finally realizes he needs to be somewhere else, backs off the infantry and starts walking away. Not fast enough for the infantry. The infantry are going to catch up with him and keep throwing as many satchel charges as we can onto that Marauder. Meanwhile, other infantry disembark out of the building. We're going to get out of that flaming hellhole and move into the smoke, where arguably they're more survivable anyway. And we're going to load off all the SRM rounds that we can into the back of that Dervish. Most of the infantry at this point have fired off most of their SRM rounds at different targets. Even the SRM rounds on the infantry over to the right of the board, as you can finally see them over there in the office building, have been expended, as the Gurkha has been playing a dangerous game with them, interfacing, jumping in, moving in as quickly as they can, and backing off, and we went ahead and house rolled it. He went ahead and hit one of them with a sword, which I don't think is technically legal, but it was really cool anyway. Clan Elementals do what they do best, move into the building. We're going to take on that Hetzer, opening up with the rest of their SRMs and small arms. We're going to try to take care of that Hetzer with, motive crits or something, because, Inferno rounds aren't doing it. The gargoyle backs up. It's going to try to do everything that it can to try to, destroy the Hetzer. It's in a very prime position to be able to kind of jink left or right. We're on the back side of the map. We're on their side, and we're rolling up the flank at this point. The gargoyle can either press its advantage and take on the Thor and Marauder, which would be a bad idea, or it can continue pressing on to the Black Knight, which it itself is in a death embrace with the Thor, whose autocannon is just ringing home. Boom, 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 boom. Tags again this turn. Tears open the torso, but doesn't manage to put it down. Meanwhile, other skirmishing forces, such as the Vixen, move over onto the other side of the board. We're over here, and it's going to continue engaging the Dervish. We have ripped the Dervish completely apart. We've got pieces of it lying all over the board, and we're going to keep shooting it. Nobody goes down this turn, but it is important to note that all of our record sheets are pretty messed up. The Thor has been in a running engagement between the Black Knight and the other Thor, which hasn't hit the broadside of a barn. The Imperial Scorpion Thor has not hit anything. He keeps trying to engage the infantry with it and make some long-range pot shots at the other Thor for hot Thor-on-Thor action, but it's really not working out for him. Black Knight moves forward as I bait my Thor early in the initiative by backing him up into a safe position onto the other side of this office building right here, and he takes the bait. He moves the Black Knight forward. He's going to make him earn some glory in a close-range assault, even though he's missing quite a bit of armor all across the mech. Infantry continue to swarm and make a real nuisance of themselves over every mech that gets close to the building over here. Vixen doubles down on their threat, moves behind the Thor that has been antagonizing the infantry since turn 1. Imperial Scorpio goes for a very risky play, taking the Gurkha, as you can now see him on the camera for the first time, and rushing over to the other side. He wants to get some of those juicy back shots against the Gargoyle, but unfortunately the Gargoyle hasn't been shot in the back yet at any point, and this is just one of those rhythms of the game you get to know. Black Lantern continues to make himself a nuisance to that Gurkha and starts rushing back over there to intercept him and tear open his backside. Black Knight starts pulling a Robocop on us as he is getting blown to pieces between the Gargoyle and the Thor, who manages to double tap with his AC-20, plum, 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 and starts taking out the left torso and starts chewing into the center torso and is finished off by a round of SRMs off of the Gargoyle. In return, Marauder and several other sources, such as the Black Knight, starts laying into the Gargoyle, which, to be fair, is probably a smart move, as the Gargoyle is missing quite a few armor panels that the technicians would probably have something to say about, but they manage not to ring home the damage. It manages to stand at the end of the turn, despite a PSR and missing several key components. It's otherwise fine. Meanwhile, Black Knight goes down, having been completely cored out. And on the other side of the board, the Vixen decides to make a name for himself like he usually does, as the Thor pilot innocently decides to ignore the fact that he exists for the turn, and the Vixen opens up its rear torso, causing several crits. 3 engine and 2 gyro if memory serves. He didn't quite put him down through structure, but we did emasculate the thing. And that's where we called it, with the Jade Falcon missing only the Fire Falcon because of stupidity reasons, and the Imperial Scorpio Thor being completely destroyed and the Black Knight also being rendered nothing but salvage. There really wasn't a whole lot that Imperial Scorpio could do, considering the rest of their forces were either completely mauled, like the Dervish and the Gurkha, or they were about to be completely destroyed. The infantry were actually swarming the Hetzer, but surprise, surprise, they didn't mount that particular last turn because I guess the Hetzer was covered with Inferno Gel. I mean, that would be a pretty good reason why they decide, maybe we'll do it next turn. But odds are pretty good that the Hetzer would find itself sans crew pretty soon. It's important to point out that we were pretty down to the wire right up to the end. Both of our sides were pretty mauled, and it could have really gone either way, and there was some element of luck in that last turn of shooting. So this has been an Ouchies Batrep, and thanks for watching.
My Dervish is shooting his... What the hell, man?
Now, looking at all the scared, huddling Quickcell employees, like, what the hell, man?
He shoots off a cell
crashing around in the...
he fires some Infernos into the sky.
Of course! Into the falling debris that it's going to detonate on. You're not making the situation any better, buddy.
Duel here?
Yeah, sure.
Because of course.
Fuck. It's just...
You see,
all
that
the-
should be the sound clip for the episode.
Fucking fuck. Well, it's a family store, so...
You didn't jam, though, so...
I didn't jam.
So-
Large laser hits.